That's quite a controversial subject. The connection between the me and the solar plexus chakra. So first of all, what is the me? So the reason I've got to say it, I don't normally call it the me, like I'd call it the identification or something, but I didn't have enough words. Like you only get a certain amount of words for the title, so I had to put the me because it was shorter than identification or the sense of self. So, so let's just talk about the absolute first. So in the absolute, there isn't a person looking through this body or having an experience. There is consciousness, and you don't even need to call it consciousness. You could also call it energy. The reason I like the word consciousness is because it kind of makes more sense if you say that, but in the end it's like a mystery, it's like an unknown. There is something that you could even call it creating consciousness, which is looking through, or you could just call it consciousness. Like we don't know what that consciousness is. It's a happening, and that seems like the base thing that can be found, that there is watching happening, there is experiencing. So you're not in deep sleep now. So all teachers talk about it differently. I use the word consciousness as the big consciousness, as the absolute. But some people use consciousness as personal awareness. And some people use awareness as the big consciousness. So everybody has different words in which they use it, and you just have to adapt to the different terminology. The reason that everyone has different terminology is because there is no truth. It's not this way or that way. It's not words. Like what's being talked about is beyond words. Words fail in comparison to it. They're like wisps of smoke in what you truly are. But we use words, and you think that you're getting something, and you're like, I think I understand. I think I'm going to get enlightened. But actually, what's being talked about is beyond that. It's really magical. It's really beautiful and magical. So, so who you are is this consciousness that's looking through. And this consciousness is using the body-mind to have an experience. And so the world is being experienced through touch, taste, smell, sight, sound, thinking, and emotions and feelings. Yeah. And the world is being experienced through all of that. So it's like, in order for consciousness to experience itself, it has to create things to experience, and it also has to create something to experience them through. So, like if consciousness is everywhere, but if it didn't identify with the body, it wouldn't actually be able to experience itself from everything. I know that sounds really random, but if you think about a dream at night, when you dream at night, you're not watching the dream from every place. Like, how would that look like? That would kind of be insane if you were experiencing a dream and you were like the tree, the sun, the moon, the sky, the persons, the people. Like, what senses would you experience it through? Like, how would you feel or see? How would you experience that dream if you were everything that was? Like, how would the air experience the earth? That's really funky to think about. How does the air experience the earth? So you don't experience a dream like that. The way in which you experience a dream predominantly is you dream that you're this body in your dream. So at night when you fall asleep, you wake up in this dream and you're looking through these bodies. Sometimes it's something else you're looking through, but predominantly it's that body you're looking through. So in your dream, you dream of a Lisa body or a Carl body or a Muhammad body or a Alice body. So you dream of these bodies, and then you you look through the bodies at the dream. So you're experiencing it like firsthand. So if you're walking through the dream, you're experiencing as if you're looking through your eyes. You're not experiencing from up here looking at the body, like you're experiencing through the eyes. And when you take a door handle to open the door, you do it with your hand and you feel it with your hand. Sometimes dreams are funky and all types of different things happen, and sometimes you just have images. But predominantly, consciousness is identified with one particular position. And if it's identified with something external to you, it's still one position. It's still one thing it's looking through and experiencing through. So in your dream at night, you experience through the body and the 5 senses plus thinking and feeling. And then consciousness looks through that, and then you experience the rest of the world. So you experience the sun from the perspective of the human body. You experience the ground from the perspective of the human body. You experience the air from the perspective of the human body, from feeling and sound. You experience temperature through feeling. You experience grass through sight. And that's what happens in a dream. And that's exactly what's happening here, is that consciousness is experiencing through these bodies, which is really miraculous. And that's who you truly are. But what happens in most of humanity is that there's an identification with the body and the belief that who you are is actually the body. And it's kind of really veiled and covered, that there is something that's looking through these bodies that isn't identified with the body, that's totally pure, that's not a thing, that's not a sound, that's not a perspective, that doesn't have judgment. It's just totally neutral, even beyond neutral. You could call it love, because it doesn't reject or accept anything. It's just experiencing. So it's like you could call it like everything becomes God's child, like the good and the bad. It just is experiencing all of it. So beautiful. The world is God's child. I don't know how I said that. Sometimes I go a bit like boop, 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 and miss out things and don't say things. So sometimes you just have to forgive the way in which I'm describing this. Just try to get onto the sense of it rather than too much the words and the logic. So consciousness is experiencing the world through these bodies, and these bodies then build this story and this energetic contraction, and they're constantly repeating a story to themselves that they are this body, and they identify with this body. And then they begin to suffer from identifying with this body, because when you identify solely with this body, you lose the connection, you seemingly lose the connection to who you truly are, and everything becomes so important and so real. And you base your philosophy and your life on being a separate body. And then you're inside this body and your relationship to everybody else, and everything else is separate from you, and that you've got to survive. And then what happens is this seeking game happens inside the body, where everything becomes very real, and you believe that freedom, so consciousness, so you always know, there's always a sense in the human body that freedom that you are, and then the human body begins to look for that in pleasure and in avoiding pain. So it begins to think that if I get the next lover, I will arrive at home. It's not consciously thinking that, but that's what it's looking for in everything that it seeks. It's always looking for home. So if I get this next chocolate bar, if I get this next haircut, if I get this next cat, if I achieve this or achieve that, I will arrive home. It will be that moment of rest. And the moment of rest that you're truly looking for, that in some level everybody knows and everybody remembers, is actually the consciousness that's experiencing now. So that which is looking through, and it's right here in everybody's experience, it's the birthright of all things. Everything is that consciousness. It's so miraculous and wonderful. Like you never left it, it's here, it's that which is experiencing. But that's not satisfying to the person, because the person might hear that and might understand it, but it's still identified with the body, and then therefore the person still has the seeking game and still wants to arrive at rest. So the person might get that, it might even be glimpses or awakening, but the person feels dissatisfied with its life because it's always waiting to arrive. So it's kind of like in this sad conundrum. Sometimes the person experiences happiness and moments of happiness and enjoys its life, but predominantly it feels dissatisfied because it's disconnected from source, from who you truly are. And it believes in a lie, it believes in a fallacy of you, that you are a separate person, that you are the doer, and that you're living your life. There is nobody that's living their life. There is only living happening. There is only experiencing happening. Like when I say that living, I mean there's only beingness happening. There isn't a person that is alive. There isn't a person that is separate. It's so sweet. So then the seeking game starts, and that starts at such a young age. It becomes such an entrenched pattern inside the body to seek for refuge in time, and always is blaming everything on time. So it believes your discomfort is because of time. It believes your unhappiness is because of time, because what you did and didn't do. And it really isn't. There is freedom right here, right now, in who you are. But it's like these claws grab onto the person, and it's like always, make me safe, make me safe. I think this is the biggest longing of the person, make me safe in time. So then how does the chakras and that fit in? So the chakras are the feeling body. I mean, they're way more complicated than that, but in one way, they are the feeling body. So if I were to suddenly be like, you motherfucking cunt, you're a bad person, I hate you, and I started shouting at you and being really horrible, unless you're a robot, you're more than likely going to have like a feeling about that. Like yesterday, me and my partner and Khaleesi got shouted at by a guy because of Khaleesi. She wasn't doing anything wrong. It was totally, he was being an asshole. And like what happens in that, like when he did that, and I have compassion for him, like I understand that he had a bad day or whatever, and so he took it out on us. And then also I believe that there is this thing called law of attraction. So there was something in me and my partner that was also getting acted out. Like I don't believe it's anyone's fault. But so when he did that, like it hurt my heart. Like it hurt. Like my energy hurt here. And that's such an instantaneous reaction. You could say it's thought, or you could say that thought comes from the feeling. It doesn't really matter what's first, the thought or the feeling. Or you could say maybe its energy comes from him. So what happens in that is that he had a go at us, and then in my heart there is a response of pain, and that pain could be, I have to try and remember what it was. I think it was like a fear and a sadness about humanity's potential of violence. I know that sounds really like dramatic, but it's like, you know, when you see someone get very angry over nothing, like you like it's like that fear about, you know, when humans don't explore the nature of reality or themselves, like, and they really identify with being someone that can be lots of suffering, and they can do really mean and violent things. And I think that was the fear in my heart, or the sadness in my heart, like something like that, like shock. And that, what is that? Like, everybody knows what I'm talking about, unless you're like really robotic and really cut off from your body, but you know what I'm talking about. Like when your boss shouts at you, or when someone's inappropriate to you, you feel it in the body. There's like this bodily response. And then there might be like mind chatter, like lots of mind nagging about it, like you should have done this, they should have done that, whatever it is. But initially, more than likely, you feel it as an energy in your body. And we always ignore that kind of in society. Like, we mostly focus on thoughts. It's the same in some spirituality is more bodily incorporated, but a lot of it focuses on your mind, like in psychotherapy and a lot of spiritual practices, like meditation and your thought processes. But there's also this instantaneous bodily reaction that happens. And you could say it's also thought in a way as well, but it's like really bodily thought. It's not like an intellectual thought. I once read about this transplant. Like, this lady had a heart transplant, and when she had the heart transplant, she began to have memories of the other woman. So she got this other woman's heart, and she had memories that the woman whose heart she got had died, but she had memories, and she like knew the husband, and she could feel this other woman. So you can see that thoughts aren't just a mind thing, they're also like a body. It's like our body is interpreting the world, like on this intellectual level, which is really amazing. The way that I describe that, because it's the best way in which I've described it, and this is from my own experience of exploring my body, is I put it in context of chakras, because when you really explore it, you will notice that all your emotions and your feelings do come back to your chakras. Sometimes you feel it in your arm and legs and other places of the chakra, but if you study chakras and you study meridians, say from Chinese medicine, you'll notice that these meridians are all connected to these chakras. So, you know, like there's different meridian points on your body, and I think like this one is the heart, and if you press it, you can begin to feel that in the heart chakra, and you become very sensitive. So we have these chakras that have emotional responses to the world, and the thinking is just the third eye. So it's only one of our chakra, like our actual thoughts, that say that person was bad or that person was right. And then our body has like this emotional intelligence. And when you feel fear, you might feel it in the sacral chakra. When you feel anxiety, you might feel it in the solar plexus. When you feel ungrounded, you might feel it in the root. Sexuality in the sacral, heartache in the heart, love in the heart, feeling suppressed verbally in the throat, not being able to express, or feeling like you can express yourself, feeling more connected up here. Like, so we do know this, and we have references to it in our language. Like in English we say shit yourself because you're so afraid, and so in Chinese medicine and in Ayurveda medicine, that would be related to the intestines. And you can feel this when you become really sensitive, and I call them traffic lights. And there's nothing wrong with the negative or the positive. Like, it was totally appropriate that when he shouted at me and was rude to me, that my heart went into the negative. If it went into the positive, I wouldn't have a correct response to him. So if it went into a positive of like, oh, he's so lovely and he's so wonderful, what beautiful words he says, I wouldn't be having the correct response. So by it going into the negative through that experience, I then had the correct response to apologize. And like, he was angry because he was angry at the way I controlled Khaleesi, but I wasn't doing anything wrong really, but I apologized and I just moved away from him. So that was the correct response. So our chakras are meant to have positive and negative response to things. They're meant to go on and off in these traffic lights. It's like when it's green, so when you have the positive response, you go forward towards the pleasure. When it's red, you go backwards, and when it's amber, you're like, I'm not sure. And the body is like really accurate to it, and all of them say different things. And we've got our thinking one, which is only one of our chakras, and that's also important. Like the thinking chakra is also important to mentally understand something. But what happens when we identify with the body, so we have this body, this amazing body that's interpreting the world. So just like if I put my hand on something hot, there would be a pulling away from it. Our chakras are responding like that. Like, so if I saw an animal in pain, my heart would respond and open, like wanting to help it, and I would move towards the animal. Like, so we have all these chakra responses to life. What happens when we identify with the body is when we cut off from consciousness, everything in the body becomes super important, because when we're cut off from who we truly are, there's always this feeling like we've lost something, and this feeling of discomfort, and we're always kind of trying to look for rest and peace. Even though that's not conscious, that's what our body's doing, or the seeking energy is doing, and it fixates on experience. So it fixates on what you see. They want to always be in love. They want to always be in happiness. What they always want to always be in excitement, in all the positive emotions, and they don't value the negative emotions, and they want to push them away. And this actually intensifies and complicates our emotions. So if you just have that experience, like, so with myself, with that guy yesterday, I didn't feel it hurt. It took a couple of minutes for that pain in my heart to go away, but I didn't feel any residue. So I didn't feel any blame towards him. Like, I mean, I know I called him, he was being an asshole, but that's just terminology. I didn't feel that, like, he wasn't being appropriate in the way that he spoke to me, but you know, who knows what happened in his life. But so there was the pain in the heart, but there wasn't like this story going on, like he shouldn't have treated us like that. How dare he? I'm humiliated. I'm embarrassed. I hate him. Why does he do that? Why are humans such assholes? Why has this happened? He made me look like a fool. Whatever it was, there wasn't this launching into a story. The reason that story begins is because there is a resistance to the pain of the feeling. And you feel that that pain is taking away your happiness, because you think that the open heart and love is what should always be experienced. It's like a junkie, and you're not appreciating like the magnificence of these bodies, of how they're determining this world. And then by doing this, by pushing away your feeling, what you're actually doing is encouraging it, because you're like talking about how you should push him away, like he's an asshole, like I never want to be around him again, I never want to be around people, I want to be in a society where there is people like him, if he was enlightened, So there is this mental pushing away, but this actually produces more discomfort in the heart, because this is a negative story you're telling. So you're thinking about all these negative things, and it actually is contracting your heart even more. Your mind is also connecting it to past experiences that you felt and past traumas. There is some relevance to that, connecting it to past traumas of like learning, and that's not necessarily a seeking habit. Like, so if you've been bitten by a dog before, for example, you might be cautious of dogs, and that might also be relevant. But the seeking energy is constantly trying to move away from any pain and move only to pleasure. What it does is it extends pain. It actually moves your over time. So when you were younger, even though you were identified, you had a lot more positive experiences. But over time of this game of always trying to be in pleasure and avoid pain, you encourage a negative mentality, because you're trying to get away from uncomfortable experiences. So let's look at another one. So say your partner doesn't do the washing up or something. And you come home and you see that the washing up's not done, and maybe that hurts your throat, like you feel suppressed, and you feel really like uncomfortable. Maybe it like also hits your sacral chakra, because you feel fear about the confrontation or something, and it hits your throat, like he didn't listen to me, or she didn't listen to me, they didn't do the washing up. And a mentality starts, and your body goes into negativity. The reason it started is because you believe this is who you are. You believe that they're a separate doer external to you, that you're two people that have free will and autonomy, that they chose to not do it, that you can influence them, and you believe that their action is creating unhappiness in you. But actually, in actuality, your freedom is the consciousness when you walk in the room. There's the pain in these two chakras, but they haven't done it. But if you're not identified with it, that pain will pass, and then you'll be able to go up and express it to your partner. And it's important that you express it. If they promise to do something, it's passive aggressive. If they don't they keep repetitively not doing it. They might have just genuinely forgotten or had an issue. But if they're doing those types of things, it's passive aggressive, and it's important to go and express that in a kind and open manner. So it's important that these chakras realize that the partner's been inappropriate, and not just like, oh, I'll do the washing up because I'm so blissed out. You're not going to have a healthy relationship, but a lot of people get into this mentality that you're always going to be like, hey, come, fuck me, please, come, fuck me, yes, everything's good. I never have a problem with anything. And that's a total lie. You've got to have these chakras. And I made, after like a awakening and lots of experiences, I made these mistakes repetitively where like I could be in so much bliss and freedom, like recognizing who I was. I ignored my chakra feelings because it was easier to ignore them than to actually confront people and speak to them about issues and problems, because I was so blissed out. I was like, oh, fuck it. Who cares if the washing up's not done? But then that's actually going to work. Like in the end, that will end up being a tsunami of problems. It's like having a kid and never disciplining it. If you don't put up your boundaries with people, it's like if you have a kid and you're always giving in and giving them chocolate and candy and like never setting boundaries, you're in the end going to end up with like a tyrant of a kid. The same with a dog as well. So it's important that you have these chakra problems, these chakras going into the positive and negative, so them having their traffic lights so you can navigate the world. But the difficulty or the suffering comes when you believe that is you, and you believe your happiness is on experiencing the positive chakra feeling. And in that, you then actually encourage the negative, because, so say if you come in and you see the washing up, you then go into, why didn't they do it? They never do it. Oh God, it's going to be another argument. And now I have to do it, and I'm tired and I'm exhausted and I don't want to do it. And there's all this drama going on in your brain, and you're thinking about it, and you're making the chakra more and more uncomfortable, which is then making the mind think more and more. And then maybe you go up, and because you're not recognizing what's happening in your body mind, so you go up and then you are just like mean and grumpy with your partner. You don't tell them what they've done, but you just do passive aggressive things where you like make comments to put them down, or you bitch at them, and then it causes friction in your relationship, and it will cause more discomfort in your chakra areas. So the chakras begin after years and years of identification. The chakras begin to come very out of balance, because your thinking mind is obsessed with pleasure being freedom, and then it's always trying to avoid any negative experience, and then it encourages thinking, and it encourages disbalance of chakras, and then the disbalance of chakras encourage the thinking. So why is the solar plexus and the me, the illusory me, connected? I mean, they're all connected in a way, like everything is connected. But the solar plexus is like a really interesting one, and most of the time when I work with people, this is the chakra that I have to predominantly work with people around, because the solar plexus is the chakra of choice and determination, and the sense that you can do something, that you can overcome things, that you can achieve, that you have the ability to choose, that you can choose, that things will work out. In the negative, it's hopelessness, helplessness, stuckness, depression, anxiety, wanting to kill yourself at the most extreme. It's feeling like you can't do things, that you can't succeed. So it's a really important chakra, because this is going to sound really crazy, but your choices are actually what make up your sense of self. Sense of self is actually an important thing, ironically, to have for a body-mind mechanism. Identifying with that sense of self is what leads to suffering. So believing that sense of self is who you are, that you are this this person, and that's who you are, and you're moving through time. But actually, the body-mind having a sense of self is a really important functioning of the body. So if you didn't have a sense of self, so someone came up and said, hello, my name's Lucy, what's your name? You'd be like, I am consciousness. I am Khaleesi. That there needs to be a sense of self of the body, otherwise you would go into somebody like with dementia or somebody with Alzheimer's or to a very young child. So there's a functioning of a sense of self that happens with the body. And psychologists say that the sense of self, like that sense of self, or the sense of choice, and the sense of like what you want is a huge part of the sense of self. And it's an important part, and it is an important part. And they say, you know, like a lot of emotional problems and a lot of disbalance that people have come from parents not engaging with the child about what the child wants, and parents pushing onto the children the parents' wants, rather than engaging and encouraging the child to find out what it wants. Now, there isn't obviously an identity here that really has wants or not, but the body has a functioning of looking at the world at what it wants. So it has a functioning ability. So we can line up like 10 different foods, and the body can look at the food and it can decipher what one it wants. And that's an apparent choice, but it's not actually a separate entity's choice. It's actually a functioning of the body-mind. So if we take Khaleesi, for example, I could put in front of her a courgette, a carrot, a chicken, and a fish, and give her that choice. So she would look at them, and she doesn't have this internal monologue that's like, I'm going to choose, Khaleesi's going to choose, I'm going to choose. She simply chooses, a choice happens. And the choice happens based on her particular life to date. And I know that she's going to pick chicken. I can bet you thousands that she would pick chicken in that experiment. So, and we as humans call that free will, but it's not really free will. It's dependent on her genetic structure, on her smell, on her history as to what I've fed her. So it's actually dependent on everything that came before the choice. But in the moment, she has a feeling of choice. She doesn't have to sit there and be like, I can't choose, I'm powerless, it's never going to work out. She has a sense of feeling empowered, like she can choose. And that is a very empowering and a really positive attribute. So like an abused dog would be one that like you're never letting it do anything. You're always keeping it in this cage, and you're never like letting it like choose these things or do things or have choices of its own. Like you can imagine like a dog that's just kept in the cage and it's given its food and it's maybe walked twice a day. It will end up being a very bored and maybe even frustrated dog. It won't suffer, but it will exhibit like low self-esteem, and it will exhibit all these issues. And it's the same for a human. It is important that the human has a feeling of choice. So Ramesh always used to say, in every given moment, do exactly what you feel like doing, knowing that there's nobody doing anything. I keep forgetting to put Ramesh Balsekar on my reference page, but please know that I really love Ramesh, and he was a teacher very dear to me. So Ramesh Balsekar is his name. So it's important that there is a feeling of choice. So it's important if you go up to 10 different pieces of food that you can feel empowered enough to choose, that you're not looking at everyone else to see what you should be choosing. You're not waiting for other people to choose. You're not waiting to be told to choose. A healthy human will feel empowered to make a choice. And it's the same with other things as well. So say if it was a job or whatever situation it is, that feeling of feeling empowered to choose is very important and healthy for a human. And that's the solar plexus. So, and it also, your choices are what makes up your sense of self. So like the fact that you chose to get into non-duality, the fact that you chose to have children, the fact that you chose to go to school, the fact that you chose to educate yourself, the fact that you chose to earn money, you chose to have a cat, you chose to create a bank account, you chose to save your money, you chose to go on holiday. If you think about describing yourself, a lot of the description of the sense of self, the sense of you, will be about the choices that you've made. It's really important, this appearance of choice in human culture and in human society. And your whole life is always being dependent, apparently, on what you're choosing and what you're not choosing. So the sense of choosing is a big part of sense of self. It's not all of it, but it's a big part. So that's why in Chinese medicine, they call this the sense of self area. Not all people, but a lot of people call this the sense of self. And it's also this willpower, this determination as well. And a lot of people in our society have a very negative sense of self. They feel like they cannot choose. They feel like they're trapped in society. They're trapped by money. They're trapped by their partner. They're trapped by their parents. They feel victimized by a lot of things. They feel like they can't do things. They feel low energy, lack of energy. And that all comes from the solar plexus chakra. Solar plexus chakra. And then what happens for most people is that they believe it's true. They're not even conscious that it's there. They just believe it's true. So if you've got like this whole issue with society, like society's so fucked up, it does this, it does that, and it does that to people, and you've got this whole issue with society, you might believe it's true. Like we can objectively discuss society and we could say that like capitalism doesn't seem like the best scenario for humans. Does have lots of problems in it, but a lot of people like blame society, particularly in spirituality, because their solar plexus is out of balance, not because they're being objective and productive in order to improve society. They're doing it out of a sense of lack and a sense of disempowerment from the solar plexus. So you can feel it, like when you're engaging in activities, in conversations, in interactions with people, in choosing, when that's painful in the solar plexus, more than likely what you're doing is you're adding to the negative energy of it. So you're doing things out of disempowerment rather than empowerment. And this is when law of attraction comes in, because if you act out of disempowerment, then you're just going to attract more disempowerment to yourself, whether it be through feeling in your body or whether you put yourself in disempowerment situations. But the feelings of the solar plexus aren't inherently identified. They are only feelings. The person identifies it and then makes the feelings worse, exaggerates the feelings, and sometimes they can last for years or an entire lifetime. But they're not inherently identified. They're just an expression that happens in these bodies, the chakra, and then there's this energy that comes in and sucks onto it, and it's like, I am this, I am that, and it believes that it's its reality. Like, I am somebody that hates society. I think society's fucked up. And we can discuss that, and you can discuss it from your negativity, but the best way, the most healthy way to me as a human is like making change and discussing and putting energy into that which expands your chakras, not which contracts it. Like, this is such an important basic lesson of being human, that it's so important to act from a place of expansion. It's also important, obviously, to act when it contracts, But this is a so it's important to predominantly act from an expansive place. It's also important to move away from things, like with that guy, like that pain happened and you move away from it. But predominantly when you're making action, when you're going out in the world, you want to go with that expansion. So I'm not trying to say always avoid the negative of the contraction, but so like the other day, I was speaking to someone in a one-to-one session, and I can't remember what I said to them, but it was so distinct. Oh yeah, I was saying to them that they were saying they want to put themselves out more on the internet, you know, for their business and stuff. And I said something along the lines of, the internet can have a dark side to it. And as soon as I said that, my chakra went into the negative. And, you know, I went on saying there's dark side and positive side and blah, 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 you know, doing the whole talking thing. And I could feel that this was coming from an old pain, maybe an old seeking pattern of Lisa, and that it was actually contracting my solar plexus, and that wasn't the right thing to engage and to talk about. It doesn't mean that, like with the internet, so say with I don't know, what are they called, Instagram or Facebook. Like, I'm not a fan of social media. I have to use it for these talks, but if you follow me, you notice I really don't post much on it because I'm not a fan of it. And that's my reaction to it. So when I look at it and interact with social media, like the chakra contracts, and so I move away from it. And then if I feel expanded, then I go and I, you know, post on it or whatever it is. And that's a natural way of movement, and it's important to act from a place that expands. But when I was speaking to him the other day, I was encouraging negativity in the solar plexus just from a conversation. And to me, that is like old patterns that you don't want to engage with, you want to move away from. Now, on the ultimate level, it's God's will as to whether you move away from it, but it appears like there is this recognition in the brain that the chakra is going into the negative through my current conversation, and that it's not appropriate to be saying all these bad things about something. It's encouraging like a negative train. And so there is then a stopping of it, and then a moving away from that conversation. If it comes to action, it's slightly different. So, you know, like if I'm out and about and this person's aggressive to me, like the chakra goes into negative and I move away. But that's different from a story that I'm telling, like a mental story. Yeah, you understand? Je comprends? Je comprends? Vous comprendez? Vous comprendez? Yes. And what you want to do is you want to, the chakras are always, the chakras are neutral, or you want to move towards expansion. You want to move towards expansion. And then when they contract, you move away from that what they're contracting from, as long as it's not based on like a story that's just being ridiculous. So say if there's like a big explosion down at the water, there might be fright. So there's a contraction in my, when I say down by the water, down by the sea, I'm near the sea at the moment. So there's a contraction in my sacral chakra. So there's an explosion, there's a contraction, and I move in the opposite direction. But say if I'm like talking about what, like at the moment, me and my partner are looking at houses. Say if I'm talking about it's impossible, I'm never going to find a house, or and then my chakra goes into contraction. This is what you want to move away from on the human level, like doing that, like putting your chakras in the negative for no reason. Like that's when you're like buying into a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you're creating negativity for yourself, and you're creating friction energetically from you and buying a property. So you listen to them in practical ways, and then they're neutral, and you're not encouraging them to go into the negative, which most of the time most people are doing. That they're constantly criticizing or talking or moaning about a friend, or moaning about this or moaning about that. Yeah. Okay, we have to go to questions now, because I've said so much. I have no idea what you've resonated with or what you're confused by. So we'll now go to questions.